Outed. Outed. Welcome to Outed. You've all heard of TED. Ideas that are worth spreading. But ideas that don't threaten the profit of the evil ultra-rich sponsors. You see? Outed. Well, now it's been bested. Because now we need to recognize that big sugar, big tobacco, big pharma, big oil, the war machine, they actually, with evil greed, threaten the existence of the human race, the continued existence of the human race. And Ephesians tells us that the struggle is not against people of flesh and blood, not against people, but against the greedy, arrogant rulers, the business government authorities, against the powers of hate in this dark world, who allow evil to do business. Our struggle is against the deceptive, destructive, greedy, biased forces of evil. To that level, we need to take science to a new level and recognize maybe we're going to step on toes of these evil ultra-rich. But I welcome you to a new form of Outed, where we're going to talk about different things. And we're not going to worry about what toes we step on. A new version of truth. In our work on the evil corporations of death, who make a living killing people, we need to make sure that we address Big Sugar. And just what has happened with Big Sugar. And we've done an awful lot of work about that, but now recently it's been found that Big Sugar criminally paid scientists to divert attention from the damages that sugar does to blame it on cholesterol and fat. And here, oh my God, sugar is responsible for billions of people's deaths. So we really need to take a look at what sugar has done and the effects of sugar on this planet. And basically to recognize that the high glycemic sugar does damages, whereas natural fruit sugar doesn't do that. But the high glycemic sugar is responsible for the damages even of the plague and slavery. Lots of damages, and we have a host of this. If you go to the Stop the Evil Ultra Rich, we have lots and lots of information about Big Sugar and the damages they've done.
You maniacs! You blew it up! Oh, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
I don't think Big Sugar will be remembered well in history from the damages and the people that they've killed. It has now been proved that Big Sugar was found to criminally pay to alter research to try to blame fat for the deaths that actually were caused by Big Sugar.
The JAMA study says the sugar industry paid Harvard researchers to downplay the link between sugar consumption and heart disease. The evidence is based off more than 300 unearthed documents.
Yes, absolutely. Big Sugar as an industry tried to cover this up. They tried to alter research. And they actually paid scientists to lie about the effects of sugar.
What we're seeing now is the effect of a population who's been eating sugar thinking that it was okay for them. And we're seeing an increase in diabetes, obesity, and heart disease.
Way back in the early 1900s, Dr. Wiley saw that sugar drinks were the greatest threat to the American way. And he said that people are making suicide to themselves by bad eating, and especially from sugar drinks. And he is the reason that the FDA was started, because of his work against sugar.
For decades now, we've known that cholesterol and fats contribute to heart disease. But what about sugar? A new study in the Journal of the American Medical Association claims that back in the 60s, the sugar industry launched a paid campaign to downplay sugar's role in heart disease.
But slowly, after accumulation of massive amounts of wealth, Big Sugar took over the FDA. And what was the result of that? Well, literally, billions have died from the effects of Big Sugar and Big Sugar drinks. This has recently come to light. We've been telling you this for a long time, but articles have showed 100,000 per year deaths related to it. In fact, billions. Oh my God, this is massive. And in order to do this, Big Sugar has had to cover up the research that actually showed that Big Sugar was responsible for most of the heart disease.
What makes a woman look good in the kitchen? While the U.S. sugar industry stepped up its ad campaign to sweeten our palates in the 1960s,
cherry cheese pie from bags of Imperial pure cane sugar.
it was quietly paying the country's top Ivy League school to discredit evidence of the health risks of sugar. Codenamed Project 226, the industry was funneling thousands of dollars to a pair of influential Harvard nutritionists, led by Dr. Mark Hegsted. One secret memo spells out the terms of the payoff: half to be paid when you start work on the project, and the remainder when you inform us that the article has been accepted for publication. The scientists' job was to review and dismiss findings that linked high sugar consumption to heart disease, and instead blame saturated fat and cholesterol, giving sugar a free pass.
Big sugar actually caused the Black Death. 450 million people plus died. You see, sugar weakens the immune system and thereby allows infection to enter and to flourish.
We've known for a while the negative effects of sugar and how it does lead to heart disease, so it's not surprising that this data is coming out. What's sort of disappointing is how it started, and understanding that when industry drives research, there could be a problem with the outcomes.
Schmidt is part of a University of California team that uncovered Project 226 and the documents at Harvard's Med School library. The California professors have spent years unearthing revelations about the sugar industry's deep influence on public policy with its simple message.
Don't worry about sugar. Focus on cholesterol and fat. That really shapes the scientific agendas for scientists. It may even shape funding agendas.
That message left out the risks of high sugar diets, which are now being blamed for the obesity crisis.
And the damage that big sugar does to the arteries, veins, and nerves is the #1 cause of heart disease, conclusively.
It's bigger than this. It's about all of the food industry influencing federal government policy.
This lawyer says blatant conflicts of interest persist today in Canada. Coke has poured millions into funding research that says exercise, not diet, is the best way to fight obesity, and that's just one example.
Health Canada's Food Expert Advisory Committee, in which about half of the members of the advisory committee are either representatives of the food industry or have investments in it or consult with it.
The lead Harvard scientist in Project 226 went on to work for the U.S. government to help draft dietary guidelines, which for decades resisted daily limits on sugar.
Big sugar is like a drug, and parents, please don't use sugar to try to reward kids for good behavior. Let's look about the drug effects of sugar.
The currency of our reward system is dopamine, an important chemical or neurotransmitter. There are many dopamine receptors in the forebrain, but they're not evenly distributed. Certain areas contain dense clusters of receptors.
And these dense clusters of receptors can cause dense accumulation of fat.
And these dopamine hotspots are a part of our reward system. Drugs like alcohol, nicotine, or heroin send dopamine into overdrive, leading some people to constantly seek that high. In other words, to be addicted.
Poor, fat, stupid, sick, and addicted to food. That's a poor way to be.
Sugar also causes dopamine to be released, though not as violently as drugs. And sugar is rare among dopamine-inducing foods. Broccoli, for example, has no effect, which probably explains why it's so hard to get kids to eat their veggies.
Yes, sugar's addictive, and also, you see, sugar feeds a certain type of bacteria in your gut, and this bacteria will release different chemicals and hormones that will stimulate your brain to crave more sugar. The bad bacteria will then feed on the foods, and it creates this disease inside you to crave this. Artificial sweeteners are just as bad. They actually start to create a problem when you get this bad sugar. They take over your brain and make you crave more. Absolutely true. It's not beyond addiction. It's actually a craving. And you see, Big Pharma and Big Sugar, they have realized this, and they have taken control of the FDA. Different laws and different regulations have allowed them to control the sugar industry and thereby let the sugar industry flourish. And the sugar industry, because of the addictive qualities of what it does to the brain and what it does to your gut, making you crave more and more, it's taken over people's minds and energies. We now need to really do something, because we need to recognize the evil of the big sugar. We need to recognize that it's killed billions. And we really need to recognize that this high glycemic products of sugar, potatoes, corn, all these high glycemic foods create a problem. And the simple solution to sugar is to use applesauce. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. And applesauce, which is healthy because it is a non-high glycemic, it's a fruit sugar that does not produce a high glycemic effect, so thereby it has no detrimental effects on the veins, arteries, nerves, and immune system. It actually stimulates them. So we, as a society, we now need to recognize we have been duped, and we need to change our ideas about sugar. Here's some ideas about how bad sugar is and some little experiments. You see, if we take wheatgrass and try to grow it first with water, then with sugar, what happens when we put this sugary soda onto the grass? Well, we're going to see water allows it to grow, but not the grass. But then when we put the sugar onto the wheatgrass, what happens? Well, it kills the wheatgrass. We can remember an idea from a movie called Idiocracy, where it was stupid to put sugar water onto plants.
Tastes like Gatorade.
Is that Brondo stuff?
They're watering crops with a sports drink?
If you water crops with sugar, it kills life. And then it produces mold, bacteria, bad mold, bad bacteria. You see, that fills your gut. And then this bad mold, bad bacteria inside your gut takes over your brain and makes you crave more sugar. It's a big cycle.
Brondo the Thirst Mutilator had come to replace water virtually everywhere. Water, the basic component of all life, had been deemed a threat to Brondo's profit margin.
In reality, Big Sugar has been found to criminally have paid doctors, researchers, scientists to alter the research, to try to blame fat for the deaths that sugar produces in order to protect their profits over people. And see, here's another experiment. Here's another process that happens, a typical meal. And when you blend it, and blend it with sugar to the meal, and put it in glass, one with the sugar and one without, fermentation starts and builds rather quickly. You see, this produces gas and it upsets the process, also producing alcohol and other parts of the fermentation processes, which causes bloating and everything and disrupts your process of digestion, making this alcohol. And you know what? This has been found to aggravate cancer. Cancer is dependent on sugar. Cancer cells eat 45 times more that white processed sugar than they would from fruit sugar, from different types of fruit. So this is going to produce cancer risk. It doesn't stop there. Actually, we find out that the sugar will then make a switch to the acid state. Healthy human body should be around 7.4, but the sugar will now make everything more acid, and cancer thrives in an acidic environment. Sugar will make things more acid. Cancer thrives with this acid. In fact, all disease thrives when things are more acid. And the pH of living matter comes in contact with sugar. It changes to more acid. Disease, it comes from an alteration of acid or alkaline. Here's another experiment. Now we're going to bake a cake with and without sugar. And we're going to find out as we bake this and heat it up. The browning process is called glycation. It's caused with the sugar binding to a protein. This happens inside your body with that sugar. And see, there's biological damages to all of the cells. When your blood sugar rises, when you take in this processed sugar, it creates a multitude of different disease states all over: nerves, brain, mood, arthritis, circulation. Now, would you put sugar on your foods like this? Would you eat 50 grams of sugar? It's in this McDonald's drink, you see. Would you have 140 grams of sugar for breakfast? No, but it's there. You see? And this is creating this incredible concern about profit. And let's look at what profit might do.
When the Brawndo Corporation simply bought the FDA and the FCC, enabling them to say, do, and sell anything they wanted.
Well, in truth, the FDA has been designed to protect Big Sugar and to protect the profits. And there really has been manipulation of the legislature and the law by Big Sugar over the people and the minds of the masses.
I'm pretty sure what's killing the crops is this Brawndo stuff.
The Brawndo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
So wait a minute. What you're saying is that you want us to put water on the crops?
Yes.
The sugar-fed bacteria and fungus, candida, etc., grow in the gut, take over the brain, make you crave more sugar. This is kind of like an alien horror movie. And yet it really does happen. And the sugar creating disease has killed billions of people. Literally over 1 billion people have died from the effects of this sugar, this processed food. And what's happened, as this sugar consumption has increased over the years, we see diabetes, obesity increasing right along with it. Host of other diseases. Sugar is not food. There's no nutritional reason to eat it. It's empty calories. No normal person would water plants with sugar. Stay healthy. Stay away from sugar. Realize that fruit is nature's candy. And parents, it's up to you. Fruit. Use fruit. Use vegetables. Don't use this for sugar. Realize all the damages that this sugar does. And there's a simple thing that you can do. You can substitute chopped applesauce, finely chopped applesauce, into any recipe for sugar. And after you've done that and see how well it works and how tasty it is, call me on Facebook and thank me.
Now, I'm no botanist, but I do know that if you put water on plants, they grow.
Well, I've never seen no plants grow out of no toilet.